Okay, hello everybody. Global economics, and last time we really started with global economics in a whole, because here I started to show you in a descriptive manner how global economy has developed over the last decades, and that we could there identify um, a quite special issue, especially when we then looked at the performance of global economy as a whole, as then calculated by global production or global GDP. And if we also look in parallel on global economic trade, that we there can definitely identify this more or less starting point of globalization, where the world became much closer in an economic way. Because when we see that global trade and global production more or less moved parallel until the start of the millennium, that even means also that here in 1990, more or less, the breakdown of the communist part of the Soviet Union, that this more or less took 10 years until everything has in such a way resettled that we could then really start up and interact with all these new economies. And then, of course, in the beginnings of the 90s, with very much power, China stepped in to the world economy. And this all together then had the result that we had almost 10 years where economic trade has developed twice as fast as economic production. Well, more or less we thought this would go a bit longer on, but then we had the financial crisis, and after the financial crisis, we had really a new issue that again world trade and world production moved parallel and even at much lower rates. And also we can say with the appearance of Donald Trump in the United States, this initiated more or less also a new economic policy in some countries that they really thought about, is it really good for us, or shall we really interact more and more and more with each other? And on this topic we will look in a minute when we also then divide the world economy in different regions, and then we will learn that also in China something changed after the financial crisis and also then in the beginning of the 2010s in the last decade. And this we already started the last time, and there we see, especially here, have a look at the yellow line, which is showing China, that we have, especially here, always in this first 10 years of the millennium, especially not in world production. There the increase started a little bit later, So for China, then we can say that at first they started to interact, and this had then the later impact on their own production, but with a shift of only 2 or 3 years, they also started really to increase in the development in world production. And what we see is that especially by exports, China just within 10 years closed up to the exports of the United States. So they already were as large as the United States after, so to speak, 10 years of this globalization. And this is a really, really fast velocity which we see here, and that it took then another 5 to 10 years that they closed up also in the amount of exports to whole EU. So until this time, there was always, something like a competition between Germany and China, who is the export world champion. But right now, it is just only China again, and Germany is then really the second place. So here, China closed up to US exports within 10 years, and after 15 years, China's exports are as large as EU exports. But there I told you that you have to keep in mind that in this case I calculated extra EU exports, and quite often in statistics, if you look at the EU, then the data is also additionally with the intra EU exports, because in the main statistics you find the only the data where you have also the bilateral trade between Germany, France, and so on. Well, on the import side, there you see that China more or less here closed up. China closed up after 15 years to EU and United States. And I already talked about this, that then we have here with a little time shift the closing up process in production, and that around or after 20 years, China's economy is as large as EU. Well, what else do we see? We also see that then here we have in the actual situation that still exports are really increasing on average in Chinese economy, while imports are also lowered in their performance, in their velocity. So here in the actual situation, we see that China's exports still increase with high velocity, while imports lowered in velocity, like world trade, as I already mentioned, has lowered after in their in its velocity also after the financial crisis. Well, and what we then see, and here I give you also this in a another graphical way where we see also this very fast close-up process of China as one of the three main economic regions right now, that we have here at the exports. You see in the 1980s, China, you almost don't see, 90s 3%, and then this doubling process, and still in the exports increase by 6 percentage points. And if we compare these, especially with the imports, then until the financial crisis, we had more or less a parallel development in imports, but then import proportion of China stayed the same. So now we have this discrepancy. If we look at the trade of China, that still they are exporting very much, but relatively they lowered their imports. And this we will model in a theoretical way in a minute what this could mean in general. And of course, here, but this is wrong. Here is a wrong picture, I see. Oh, 2012 and 22 is missing, sorry. I have to look up for 22, but in 22 I think we have it here. Oops. Yeah, that in 22 we have China is as large as the European Union. Sorry, 22. China GDP as large as EU. Later on, I will give you also the picture for this. So what we can then state just from the descriptive look on the data, that until 2010, China closed up in exports, imports, and production to the other two leading regions in the world, European Union and United States. In the next decade, exports and production increased again on a very high level, while the velocity of imports lowered. Well, and then, yeah, we can make the hypothesis that something changed, especially in the economic policy of this now new level player, additional level player in the world economy. And I think you have done already in other courses talked about game theory. And so I want with you now to analyze this situation in a game theoretic model. And game theory is, yeah, highly valuable in this and such situations, I think, because you really can think that there is some strategy in general behind what the large leading economic regions are doing. And for this, at first, we ask, for the, let's say, these first decade of globalization from 2000 to 2010, where both European Union and China, we will do this only for simplicity in a two-player model, where both both regions really opened to each other and both benefited from trade. And yeah, for this we could say that in a so-called classical situations, we would assume that if I pose for myself the question, should I open my market for others? And what happens? Then, of course, I have a higher competition within my market. Maybe my industry is not performing that well. So in a situation that I will shut up my market, but the other market will open for me, then in this case I would benefit. And this is then meant, let's say here we take China, and China has chosen to open their markets. Then we assume that they have chosen the strategy of free trade. Then we could think, what happens if I'm still protecting my market? So this, yeah, yes. And therefore, this I wanted to motivate that we have here this payout of 6 because I'm profiting from the open market of China, and so to speak, I'm still have tariffs and other protections, so I also obtain something when China wants to export something into my country. So compared to the situation that we both have free trade, in this case, we would assume that it would be better for us to protect our market. And of course, if we look in this situation at the position of China, there we would assume, well, I have opened my market, but I don't have I don't have access to the other market, that this would be a harmful situation for me, and therefore I have here only the I have here only the payout for China of 1. So the first one is the payout for the EU, and the second one in this such a strategy combination is the payout for for China. So altogether, we have then 4 possible strategy combinations. And now in this situation, we want to argue, or we want to analyze what will be the outcome of this game, what will be our best thing to play. And this we want to do with the so-called Nash equilibria. And I hope that you already have heard about Nash equilibria. I will just show you because this I also started here. Oops. On the web page here, I load up all these more or less famous papers, which we are also dealing here in our lecture. And there is then, and you see here, this is just a 2-pager of John Nash in 1950, where he wrote about his Nash equilibrium, not with 2 players, but with n, but still it's only 2 pages, and this had really a huge impact on economics. And yeah, in order that you remember, how is a Nash equilibrium defined? A Nash equilibrium is a strategy of combination of strategies in which each player chooses a strategy with which no player has an incentive to be the only one to deviate from his chosen strategy. And this is a very important point, given the strategy of the other. So I always have to think, I have to fix, not that the other one is really doing this, but in my mind, in a thought experiment, I fix the strategy of the other one. And then I ask myself, given this strategy, what is my best answer? And if both do this simultaneously and we have then an outcome where we can say within this strategy combination, no one has an incentive to deviate from this, that we call then a Nash equilibrium. And applying this, we want to see if we can, oops, this I wanted to copy. I think I have to do it here, or where do I find it? Oops, no, there. Hmm? There it is. So then let's try it. For this, we start. For example, we want to analyze the best answer of European Union. Then we have to start at first to fix the strategy of China. So here we would say EU given China plays free trade. This I abbreviate with FT. What does this would mean? Then what is the payout if EU would play free trade too? What is then the payout? Yes? Yes, because now what you can think of is you take this column now as given, and what you um, need not to do anymore is to look at the second payouts here. You are not interested anymore in the payouts of China in this case. You just fixed the strategy here, and you are comparing only the 6 and the 5. So here we would have 5, and if EU plays protection, then we obtain, yep, 6. So, and if you are analyzing this, quite often then you underline this or you make a circle around this. So in this case, you know, okay, this is one possible best answer if China has chosen free trade. Because then, oops, 6 larger than 5. So my best answer is to get to protect still my country. Well, then we go on. EU now given China plays protection, then in case of EU plays free trade, now we are in the second column. What would be the payout? Yep. Yes. Now, because now we are in the second column, and you look at free trade at the first payout, so this is 1. And if we play protection, yep. Well, and then we have 3 is larger than 1, and best answer is also protection. And this we have to redo for China. Well, we already know the answer since I constructed for simplicity this this payoff matrix in a symmetric way, but we will do it also in the steps now, and this you should really keep in mind when analyzing a payout matrix, that you really use this standardization, that you are not be puzzled. So Cn given EU makes free trade, then for Cn also free trade, we obtain 5. Oh, sorry, I have also to underline this 3 here. And Cn now protecting, then I would have the payout 6. So what we are doing now is we looking now at the lines here and looking only at the second part of the payoff. So 6 larger than 5, and best answer is also protection. And the last one, EU now playing protection, then we obtain the one here versus the 3 over here, 3 larger than 1, and best answer is also protection. So we can underline also the 6 for China, given free trade as the fixed strategy of the European Union, and 3 down here. And so we now know that within this strategy combination, this is simultaneously the best answer for both players, and therefore we can identify this as a Nash equilibrium. So together, choosing protection is simultaneously the best answer for both players, and therefore PT, so protection as a strategy combination is a Nash equilibrium. Well, and what we also have to mention is that this is a Nash equilibrium in pure strategies, because of course you can also think about, well, I'm assuming that the other one is playing with 30% protection and with 70% free trade and so on, then this is the theory of mixed strategies. This one could also analyze, but this is not a game theoretic lecture. Therefore, we are starting only with these pure strategies. Well, what else do we see from our analysis is that we see also that for both countries, protection is the best answer no matter what the other is playing. And do you know how do you call such a strategy if this is the case? Yep. In the end, this is a prisoner's dilemma, but at first I only want to know how I call a strategy, which is always the best one, no matter what the other one is doing. This has also a special name. So if you, so to speak, do not have to care about what the other one is doing. This is called a dominant strategy. So PT is a dominant strategy. Well, and now you already mentioned that this is called a prisoner's dilemma. This ends up in the so-called and why do we call it a prisoner's dilemma? If we look at the payouts. Because if we look, or if we compare this outcome here, yeah. Yes, and this is the reason because we call this a dilemma and because in PT both are worse off than in FT. So they could be both could improve if they could somehow coordinate each other for playing free trade. Well, and I think you you introduced this in your other courses, then also with the example. You have some guys and they are caught by the police, and then they there's no evidence that they have done the crime, and then they are both asked, has the other one done the crime? And you need both simultaneous answers in order, or you need the answers of the of both people in order to get evidence, and then you can model it like this, that then both have to have an incentive in order to tell the truth, and then afterwards both go to prison. Compared to the situation if both still have lied that they haven't done the crime, then there would be no evidence and they would go out as free persons, and therefore it's called the prisoner's dilemma. Well, and this is something which we generally see when countries are in the situation that they ask themselves, well, should I open my market or should I not open my market? Well, this is then a model where we can say we cannot explain these close-up or these more or less free trade situation of the first decade where all large regions in the world really started to interact with each other. Well, and in order to try to explain this in a game theoretic manner, we expand our model or our in special our utility function that we say, well, our utility is not only our own profit. So this is the pure own profit from trade, but that we assume that we think of somehow do I benefit from the situation from the acting of my opposite trade partner, and this is then called that we add something like a term of friendliness. So do I assume that my opposite is friendly to me or not? So this would be then a term of friendliness, and this alpha in front of here is just a weight. Of course, if this alpha is 0, then we are again in the situation we had before, that I'm looking only at my own situation. And if this alpha is positive, then I think of, well, I'm caring about, is my opposite trade partner friendly to me or not? And this friendliness is then modeled via these two parameters f tilde and f. And these parameters are defined via the following way, that I say, well, what is my profit relative to my expected profit? And this I'm dividing by, this is some kind of a normalization, this I'm dividing by my highest and lowest output. So in this case, 6 minus 5. And for this, then I can say, okay, if my output is higher than the expected output, then in total this would be a positive number, and then I would assume, okay, in this case I think I'm acting friendly versus my opposite trade partner, because then I get not only the direct profit, then I get also I get also utility from an additional term of friendliness. Well, and now we can more or less say, let's go back 20 years in the start of the globalization. And there we more or less then can assume that both regions, the European Union, thinks, well, if China steps into the world, then we can sell very much to China. And on the other way around, well, there are so many people, they can start to produce things and they do it at much lower costs than we have to pay in our countries. So there was an incentive to be friendly from the perspective of the EU in this during these times. And also from the perspective of China, we can say, well, now we want to participate in the world economy, but we don't have the industry for it. We don't have the qualifications because we are just in this close-up process and we cannot do it all by our own. So it would be good for us if we get new technologies from outside. And for this, we could assume that during this time, maybe both regions have a very high alpha, that they are really friendly against each other. Well, and what happens then? Well, China really enormously profited from this opening process, this first close-up process in the first decade. And there, if you look at the former Chinese presidents, Zemin and Jintao, they really made a policy which really opens China for the world markets. Well, and then Mr. Xi Jinping took power in the beginnings of the 2010s, and then we really see that the preferences of China really changed, because now we have to keep in mind, now they are more or less in a level playing field. They are as large, almost as large as the US, and they are as large as the European Union. And of course, they have another social system than we have. And from this, we then more or less can assume, well, now they started that they think, well, that we can export our products to the world would be still good for us, but they really started to shut up their markets. And for this, we could then assume that this parameter has lowered for China. But let's see here in the time of 2013, well, then in Europe, not very much has changed. And still right now, if you take our automotive sector, they really try to stay still in China. So for this, we assume that in our friendliness parameter, so to speak, nothing really has changed. And well, if we take all this, giving the old payoff matrix here with the high and the low payouts, then we can feed in all this in our model. And with this, in general, independence of the parameter alpha, all other parameters we have, we find then that we have to change our payout matrix in this manner. Well, and now let's do the first one, that we take these numbers, and did I have it already done here? Yeah, but let's do it once for alpha AU equals alpha China equals 4. Then we get for the free trade combination five plus 3/4 times 4 is 11. Here 1 minus 3/4 times 4 equals -2. 6 plus 1/4 times 4 is 7. And 3 minus 1/4 times 4 is 2. And we put this into our payoff matrix. And then for both alpha is 4 and 4, we obtain these new payoffs. And now we want to see if now it is possible that we obtain a Nash equilibrium in pure strategies, maybe in free trade. Because we want to explain how it is possible that simultaneously both regions has opened their markets. Well, let's do it. So we again start with the EU, given China makes free trade. What do we have to compare now? Is somebody here? Anyhow. What would be our best answer given China makes free trade? Yep. Because what you are definitely comparing, which payouts? But yes. So in case that EU makes free trade, then we have the E8 and EU makes protection, then we have 7. So 8 larger 7 and EU plays free trade. So in case EU given CN plays protection. So at first we look just here and looking only at the first payout. Yep. Oh, you have to wait. EU given China plays protection. Be careful. Now we are here in the second column and you have to look at the first payout. Yeah. -2. Yes. You still have now. You still have it. You have to keep in mind. Do not change the strategy of China. This is fixed at free trade. This is now fixed at protection. But you have now to think if I'm not playing free trade, but playing at my own protection. Then we have 2, yes, and then we have 2 larger than -2, and though best answer of EU would be protection. So also this has to be underlined. And then China, given now EU plays free trade, then in case of free trade, yep. So you are just at the end, but let's write it down also. And 7, then China also plays free trade, and this would be this. Now we are looking at this line, and in the end we take this one, and EU plays protection. Now I have to go in the second line and comparing the second payouts. Which numbers do you have to compare? Oh, sorry, here has to be a CN. So it's too fast. Now, if CN in this case plays free trade, EU plays protection. So in this case, I'm just in this part and I obtain the -2, okay? I'm doing, no, it's all right. CN plays protection, then I'm on the right side, then I have 2, and so again 2 is larger than -2, and CN in this case plays protection. And what I obtain now is that we have 2 Nash equilibria of free trade, and protection. So what we see that now free trade is a possible outcome, but still it is not the only outcome. So in this case, we still can say there, we need still some kind of coordination process in behind, but we can really say that it is here more or less much easier possible to obtain an overall scenario of free trade in this situation. Still, we need some coordination process, but it is much easier to come to a free trade scenario. And in this time, maybe we can also argue that especially in Europe and in the United States, there was actually some, so to speak, mood in order to open after the dualism of communist and capitalist world in the former decades, because we really thought, well, now with the opening, also the democratization of the world will start, and that especially we had a strong incentive in order to choose free trade. And in this case, also the incentive with these two very high friendly parameters, also then China would have had an incentive also to choose free trade. But what we see is that, yeah, it is hard, so to speak, to model a situation where free trade is a definite outcome. So in this case, this is, yeah, so to speak, also a good result that we cannot say, well, if the world is like this, then automatically everybody works together. And for practical issues, we always see that we always have to work hard in order to get a framework that we are coordinating and that we are working together. And so also in this very friendly modeling of the situation, still we need a coordination process. Well, and now we step in to 2013 when the situation in power in China definitely changed. And when we then calculate the outcomes with a lower friendly parameter of China of only 1, and if we feed in this here in our formulas depending on alpha, then we obtain this payout matrix here. Well, and let's in the end for today also analyze this payout matrix. So again, we start with the U given Cn makes free trade. So we are in the first column. What we have to compare, just give me the numbers, not only the result, yeah? Yes. So these first two payouts. So this would be then if EU plays free trade, then the payout would be 5.75, and EU plays protection, then I have 7.25, so 7.25 larger, 5.7, and EU plays protection. Second one, then I have to go to the second column. Yep. Yes, so AU, again, FT equals 0.25 and AU PT we have 2.75, 2.75 larger 0.25. So AU plays also protection. And then CN, and given AU, free trade. Now we have to go in the first, what again we have to compare, which numbers, when we are in the first line. Yep. Yes, this one and this one. So then if CN plays free trade, we have 5.75, and if CN plays protection, then we have 6.25, 6.25 larger, and Cn equals Pt. And the last one I will do, if AU plays protection, then we have to compare this 0.25 and the 2.75. 0.25 and Cn protection equals 2.75. So, in what kind of situation do we end up now after our analysis? First answer, is there a Nash equilibrium? And then is there a second question, or the first question is there a Nash equilibrium? And the second question would be then, is it a unique Nash equilibrium? Yep. Because why we are ending up in protectionism? Yes, definitely. Again, we see here for both players now, and this is really an important result because keep in mind the EU is still, from their utility function, a really friendly region. But the lowering of only one friendly parameter leads now to the result that both regions have now again the dominant strategy of choosing protectionism. So again, both players have the dominant strategy of choosing protection, and then protection is the unique Nash equilibrium, and we are back again in the prisoner's dilemma, although only the alpha of China has been lowered. And this is, for me, really an interesting result. And I also think this, models quite good the actual situation which we have here. Because more or less we have, we have to admit that really from Chinese perspective, there has something changed in doing trade from the perspective of China. And we, in our situation right now, didn't really want this. We still tried. But I think really that this will quite good explain what we will do in Europe in the next years. But because we really see, well, we have seen it in the energy dependence with Russia, that this was a highly riskful situation. And a little bit we saw it already in the situation of medical goods in the last years, because most intermediate goods for producing our medical goods are only produced in China right now. And if they stop selling this to us, then we have really a huge problem in our medical sector. And what we are doing in the next years for the change in mobility, especially for producing e-mobility, there we have also a really large dependence for the intermediate goods on Chinese production side. So although we don't want it, since we have still, I would assume, a high friendly parameter, we are more or less forced in order to use also a strategy of protectionism, or how we call it right now. So we should not be surprised if in the next years all countries play a strategy like decoupling. This is what you find now in the media as the description what we see right now. And this, I think, is a little model, quite simple, where you can explain what just happens right now. Okay, so some application of game theory, and I would really recommend for you really try to analyze such payout matrices really in a very slow way. When I just remember, you just mentioned, well, compared, and you meant here these free trade situation. And there you said, well, this is our best possibility. Then you have to be careful because you, in your mind, I think you just compared the payout in this strategy combination. And if you compare this payout with this, then you can say this is better than that one in the right corner. But the highest payout is still here in a strategy combination of protectionism and free trade. So, and we are quite fast in analyzing game theoretic models, always to think of, what is the other doing, and in behind changing what is the other doing. And then you will not end up at the right outcome. So really try it to do it in a slower way. Okay, Dan, thank you very much for today.